Hey guys, it's Tom Box. Thanks for tuning into MST.TV. I got a ruling segment for you guys today, and this is a question that a lot of you guys have been asking me time and time again. I answered on more than one occasion, so I'm going to be dropping it down in this video. This is the ruling of Subterra, Fiendess, and Final Battle versus Called by the Grave. And there's different kinds of chain iterations I would like to go into, and I'll also explain the reasoning behind the ruling when I give it. Also, I'll be answering a viewer requested ruling. I guess I have two of them answered, kind of jumbled into one answer after this particular ruling, so stay tuned for that. And don't forget to hit a like, don't forget to leave a comment down below, and don't forget to hit subscribe and ding the notification bell, and let's get into this rule. We're gonna start with a little bit of a card read so that we all are on the same page, and if you want to skip ahead, go ahead. So starting off with Subterra Fiendess, during either player's turn when your opponent activates a card or effect, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, then target one Subterra monster you control. That's the cost. Negate the activation, then change the targeted monster to face down defense position. You can target one face up monster you control, change it to defense position, and if you do, special summon one Subterra monster from your hand or graveyard in face up or face down defense position. You can only activate each effect of Subterra Fiendess once per turn. So in other words, we only care about the negation effect since that's the only one that's applicable to this chain. And then we have Subterra Final Battle. I'm gonna mainly read the fourth effect. There's like 4 effects here. You activate one of these effects. Also after that, set this card face down instead of sending it to the graveyard. Okay, so the fourth effect is that this turn, the activated effects of Subterra cards cannot be negated. Okay, that's the first 2 cards. Then we have Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave states, target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, banish it, and if you do, until the end of the next turn, its effects are negated, as well as the activated effects and effects on the field of monsters with the same original name. So, let's put it into context here. So Subterra, Fiendess, we have Final Battle, and Called by the Grave. We're going to put him into a chain link where the question asks, does Subterra Fiendess actually get to negate the card that it's supposed to, even though it got called by the grave? So I'm going to build the chain link now, starting off with chain link 1, Raigeki. Chain link 2, we have Subterra Fiendess attempting to negate the Raigeki. Chain link 3, we have Called by the Grave targeting the Subterra Fiendess that was sent to the graveyard. And chain link 4, we have a Subterra Final Battle, using its fourth effect to make sure that all Subterra activated effects cannot be negated for the turn. Okay, so if we resolve this chain, chain link 4, our Subterra Final Battle, now make sure that for this turn, all of your Subterra activated effects cannot be negated. Chain link 2, our Called by the Grave, now we'll banish that Subterra Fiendess and anything with the same name or activated effects on the field, all that stuff is going to be negated. So then we get to the moneymaker of the question here, the Subterra Fiendess. Does she actually get to resolve and negate the Raigeki? And the answer is yes, it does, because Subterra Final Battle has already resolved by the time we got to Fiendess, and because of that, the Fiendess will be able to negate the activation of Raigeki on the resolution, and so that the activation of, well, the Raigeki now is negated. So that's how the chain would resolve, because Final Battle has resolved already, and so even though Fiendess got banished by Call by the Grave, the blanketing effect that applies to the game state makes sure that all the Subterra activated effects cannot be negated. So that's basically it. But let's move the chain link around a little. So now we're going to rearrange the chain a little bit, and better yet, we're just going to resolve Call by the Grave first. In the previous chain, a Call by the Grave, a Fiendess, and now Fiendess is basically negated, or all activated effects with the same name is negated. So with that in mind, we apply the same Raigeki chain, where we have Raigeki, chain link 1, we have Subterra Fiendess, chain link 2, and then we have Final Battle, chain link 3, using fourth effect. What happens then? Does that Fiendess get to negate that Raigeki? And the answer is, yeah, it still does. It's mainly because of Final Battle. Subterra Final Battle's fourth effect is very encompassing to protecting the effect. So although its effect would have been negated, it now won't be, because Final Battle completely axes out anything that would cause a negation, especially when that effect is applying. That's it. So even if Call by the Grave happened earlier, it doesn't really matter. Subterra Fiendess will still be able to activate and resolve its effect to stop that Raigeki. So I guess in summary, as long as the Final Battle's fourth effect resolves before Fiendess needs to resolve, you'll be able to get your resolution as accordingly. So yeah, let's put that one to bed. If you guys have been enjoying this segment so far, don't forget to hit the like button. We got another ruling coming up. And also, if you want to help us out, hit the subscribe button or even check out the Patreon link down in the description. It really helps us out keeping this channel running strong so that we can tackle more rulings, especially the ones that are new products, of course. I like to dive into those ones especially, and appreciate all your help. Love you guys. Okay, magical muskets are on the rise in terms of popularity thanks to the release of Magical Musketeer Max. So we're going to go into the rulings of Magical Musketeers today just to make sure that everyone's playing on the same level. No one's really cheating, and it's the worst case when someone cheats and they don't even know that they're cheating. And yeah, it feels really bad because they're just arguing and doubling down on just being wrong all the time, and those are just some of the most frustrating matches. Leave your comments down in the comment section if you experience something like that. So we're going to be addressing the Magical Musket trigger condition, especially because that's something that some people have been playing wrong and it's kind of annoying. And we're going to use Casper as our monster in context. Reading Casper's effect, during either player's turn, you can activate magical musket spells and traps from your hand. Okay, so from your hand, that just means you just play like a quick play spell during your opponent's turn, like hand traps almost. The whole deck is made out of hand traps and hand spells. And if a spell and trap card is activated in this card's column, I'm going to be repeating that phrase a lot because that's what this ruling video is supposed to be addressing. You can add one magical musket card from your deck to your hand, but not a card with the same name as the activated card, and you can only activate or use this effect of Magical Musketeer Casper once per turn. Okay, so I have 4 cases for you. What happens when your monster gets moved away from a column where a card activated beneath it? And case 2, what happens if your monster gets moved into a column where a spell or trap card was already activated? What happens when your spell or trap card gets their activation negated and gets their effects negated? And finally, what happens when your magical musket card gets flipped face down? And how does that apply to the trigger condition of if a spell or trap card is activated in this card's column? Okay, for the first case, Casper in the center zone, and then we also have an Upstart Goblin also played in the center column, and then we have a Watt Kinetic Puppeteer moving your Casper away from it. What happens? Well, you moved it away, and then of course resolving backwards, you draw at the last part of the chain, and then your opponent gains 1,000 life points. Does the Casper get to add a magical musket card to their hand? The answer is no, they do not. I'm going to read their trigger once more. If a spell or trap card is activated in this card's column. This card's column is a constant. So what happens is that at the time, if you activated the Upstart Goblin and if the Casper didn't move, of course you will be able to get the search effect. However, there is nothing activating in this card's column anymore. There's no spell or trap card because it was moved to an emptier column, and at the time it was there was no card that was activated. So yeah, in that case, the trigger was not met. So both, you have to make sure that the activation and resolution of the card has to happen in the same column for you to get the Magical Musketeer's effect. Now that being said, case 2, what happens if you move one of your Magical Musketeers, say Casper, into a column where something was already active? Say the Watt Kinetic Puppeteer moved it into, say, another card that was already active. Do you get to add a card? And the answer is no, you do not, because the card was already activated. Casper needs to be there before the activation, because if the card activation already happened and you move it there, it's not that a spell or trap card activated in this card's column because it was already active at the time. So both the activation and the resolution, again, needs to be on the same column. So that is a very major restriction. So what happens, say, if my Upstart Goblin gets negated by, I don't know, a bad card, like a Dark Bribe, a counter trap negated the activation of that Upstart Goblin. Do I get to add a card? If the Dark Bribe was in the same column, sure, why not? But if the Dark Bribe was on a different column and your activation was negated, since a spell or trap card's activation was negated, it's like the activation never happened, therefore you do not get to add a card. But what happens when an effect gets negated? Say Ash Blossom Joyous Spring happened, then in that case, yes you do, because it did activate and it successfully met the resolution, and since it was still in the same column, your Magical Musketeer Casper will be able to add that Magical Musket card from your deck to your hand. But what happens if you get Book of Moon? So if you activate Book of Moon on your Casper, which is on the same column, do you get to add a card? The answer is no, it's face down now. There is nothing to meet that trigger condition anymore. It's not even public knowledge, so how can you meet something that's not public knowledge? So yeah, that's my rundown for magical muskets. So the rule of thumb is, if it is activating for a magical musket to your trigger, it has to activate and resolve in the same column as that monster. If the monster moves, it basically fizzles. Our next ruling, one effect says you have to do something and the other effect says you can't do that thing. Which one wins? We're talking about Imperial Iron Wall and Dark Law or Macrocosmos. Which one is the effect that goes through? Well, the answer to that is, well, Imperial Iron Wall will win every time. A restrictive effect will always supersede over a redirection-based effect or an effect that will alter the game state to play a certain way. A restrictive one is just saying, no, you can't do something, versus, hey, you have to banish a card. So doesn't matter the timing, it doesn't matter when you flip that Macrocosmos, doesn't matter when you summon that Dark Law, as long as Imperial Iron Wall is face up and active and not negated, nothing will be able to get banished. So that's basically how it's going to work. But that is not the case for everything. Like in terms of like contradictory effects, you have other kinds of contradictory effects in the form of, say, DNA surgery. So what happens if there's 2 copies of DNA surgery on the field? Do they just gain both types? Well, according to the card text of DNA surgery, it states that activate this card by declaring one monster type. All face-up monsters on the field become that type. And because it becomes that type, it doesn't gain that type, that means you can only have one type. And because it only has one type, what happens when you have 2? According to previous rules, if you have multiple copies of DNA surgery, the latest copy that was activated is the one that is active. The main difference between the DNA surgery rulings versus the Dark Law versus the Iron Wall ruling is that both DNA surgeries, they basically have the same effect. They're changing the game state in the exact same way. None of them is like restrictive or anything. It just changes what happens on the field. So in that case, the latest one, in terms of the timing does matter when it comes to 2 effects that basically are the exact same thing that changes something on the field. And that is all I got for ruling videos. If you guys enjoyed this video, smack that thumbs up button. If you want to check out more videos, we got like market watch stuff from Nishi. I'm working on full set analysis of Rising Rampage, so that is going to be draining all my life points for this week for the most part. I think I might even throw up a magical musket deck profile for you guys. I've been tuning it. I've been really enjoying the one spice tech that a friend recommended, and I am really enjoying playing on my opponent's turn. Yeah, it's really, really good. And I will see you guys in the next one. Yeah, don't forget to subscribe. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please drop us a like so we know we are doing a good job, and you can also subscribe to MST.TV for more fantastic videos by clicking on the button on the left. Don't forget to check out our partners at Imperium Duelist. They make really high quality mats, including some of my own limited edition release stuff. And if you want to check out one of our past videos, click here on the right. As always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV, and I'll see you next time.